Grand Theft Auto is a series of action-adventure games created by David Jones and Mike Daly. The game is primarily developed by British development house Rockstar North and published by Rockstar Games. The name of the series has an interesting reference behind it. The term Grand Theft Auto is used in the United States for motor vehicle theft. Makers of the game used to sell the games in the expansion pack as collections, and they were given catchy titles to attract the audience. So, welcome back to Evo Chronicles, where we showcase the evolution of movies, video games, and famous characters. And today's video is focused on the evolution of the very famous video game that is Grand Theft Auto. The games in the Grand Theft Auto series are set in fictional locales modeled after real-life cities at various points in time from the early 1960s to 2010. The plot remains the same throughout all the versions of the series. Each game in the series allows the player to take on the role of a criminal in the big city. The player is given various missions which must be completed to progress through the storyline. The Grand Theft Auto series belongs to a genre of free-roaming role-playing video games called open-world games, and grants a large amount of freedom to the player. The first ever game, Grand Theft Auto, was launched in the year 1997. This game is made up of 6 levels split between 3 main cities: Liberty City, San Andreas, and Vice City. In this game, the progression is linear, and the player's ultimate objective is to reach a target number of points, which starts at 1 million, but increases in the later levels. Players begin a game choosing a character amongst 8, and name them according to what they wish to. In 1999, Grand Theft Auto 2 was released. Much like its predecessor, the game focuses on players completing a series of levels, each requiring a set target score being achieved in order to progress to the next stage. Also, points are awarded from various criminal actions, such as destroying cars, selling vehicles, and completing missions to various crime syndicates. The protagonist in the game is Claude Speed, and other main characters are Johnny Zoo, Trey Welsh, Elmo, Billy Bean, and others. In the same year, an expansion pack of the game was released, named as Grand Theft Auto Mission Pack No. 1, London 1969. This also consisted of several levels, but it focuses on one setting for the levels that is the real-life city of London during the late 1960s. The main protagonists of the game are Maurice Kane, Mick Casey, Johnny Houghton, Winston Henry, Charles Jones, and Rodney Marash. Grand Theft Auto 3 is a 2001 action-adventure game played from a third-person perspective. Just like the other games of the series, the player needs to complete missions with definite objectives to progress through the story. In this game, if a player commits a crime, then the law enforcement agencies may respond as indicated by a wanted. This game also generated a controversy with criticism directed at its depictions of violence and sex. The story follows a silent protagonist, Claude, who, after being betrayed and left for dead by his girlfriend during a robbery, embarks on a quest for revenge. Grand Theft Auto Vice City was published in 2003. It's much like its predecessor and is played from a third-person perspective. The player controls criminal Tommy Vercetti and completes various missions to move ahead in the story. The game makes it possible to have several missions available at a time, as some require the player to wait for instructions. This game is set in 1986 in a fictional Vice City, which is much inspired from the city of Miami. This game also generated controversy over its depiction of violence and racial groups, sparking lawsuits and protests. The single-player story follows mobster Tommy Vercetti's rise to power after being released from a prison. He seeks out those responsible and slowly builds an empire. In 2004, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas was released. The game has role-playing and stealth elements, which makes it more interesting. It's structured similarly to the previous 2 games in the series. The core gameplay consists of elements of third-person shooter and driving games. The open and non-linear environment allows the player to explore and choose how they wish to play the game. The player is free to take up a variety of optional side missions that can boost their character's attributes or provide other sources of income. This game takes place in 1992 within the US state of San Andreas, based upon sections of California and Nevada. The game was criticized for its graphics and aspects of control. The story follows former gangster Carl C.J. Johnson, who returns home following his mother's murder and is drawn back into his former gang and a life of crime while clashing with corrupt officials and criminals. Grand Theft Auto 4 was another game in the series, launched in 2008. This game is very similar to the other games of the series. The player has to complete missions to progress through the story. In this one as well, it's possible to have several active missions at a time. This game provides the freedom to roam around the game's open world and complete optional side missions. The game takes place in 2008 within a redesigned version of Liberty City. The game is set in the fictional HD universe, which mirrors and parodies the real world. But unlike the previous entities, Grand Theft Auto 4 lacked a strong cinematic influence as the team attempted an original approach to the story. It features war veteran Niko Bellic and his attempts to escape his past while under pressure from high-profile criminals. The makers also released an expansion of Grand Theft Auto 4, which was named as Grand Theft Auto 4: The Lost and Damned in the year 2009. This was one of 2 episodic expansion packs of the original game. It features a similar gameplay to that of Grand Theft Auto 4 and takes place in the same setting of Liberty City. The game only features around a third the number of missions from the original game. It takes about 10 to 15 hours to complete it. The most important addition is the availability of mid-mission checkpoints, which can spare the player repeated trips in a mission. Grand Theft Auto: The Ballad of Gay Tony, released in 2008, is the second episodic expansion packs of Grand Theft Auto 4. The game is set in the open world of Liberty City. It features similar gameplay in the same setting as the original gameplay. The player can redo missions to improve their score. The player also has new activities, side jobs, vehicles, and weapons. The side jobs are for players to earn more money. The main storyline of the episode is based on Lewis's efforts to help Tony overcome various problems. Grand Theft Auto 5 is a 2013 action-adventure game of the same series. The story is centered on the heist consequences and many missions involving shooting and driving gameplay. The story follows 3 protagonists: retired bank robber Michael DeSanta, street gangster Franklin Clinton, and drug dealer and gun runner Trevor Phillips. A wanted system governs the aggression of law enforcement response to players who commit crimes. It's also very similar to the other games of the series. The player needs to complete missions to progress through the story. They can freely roam around the open world as well. It's composed of the San Andreas open countryside, including Blaine County and Los Santos. The world is much larger than the earlier entries. Extensively marketed and widely anticipated, the game broke industry sales records and became the fastest-selling entertainment product in history. Grand Theft Auto Online is just similar to Grand Theft Auto 5 in terms of plot and gameplay. The only difference is that the fact that GTA Online is a multiplayer game, and the player can interact with other players over the internet. This game doesn't have a protagonist. The players can customize the appearance of their protagonist. It offers both male and female protagonists. This game doesn't have a linear story and allows the players to experiment. Grand Theft Auto Online has a myriad of businesses and offers a wide variety of vehicles. Grand Theft Auto: The Trilogy, the Definitive Edition, is a 2021 compilation of 3 action-adventure games in the Grand Theft Auto series: Grand Theft Auto 3 from 2001, Grand Theft Auto Vice City from 2002, and Grand Theft Auto San Andreas from 2004. All the 3 games have been remastered with visual enhancements and gameplay upgrades. It features different protagonists and locations within the same continuity. The makers have tried to maintain the feeling of the original games to the maximum. The player in this game also has to complete missions in order to progress through the story. The game was appreciated for the new features and enhancements. It features Claude from Grand Theft Auto 3, Tommy Vercetti from Grand Theft Auto Vice City, and Carl C.J. Johnson from Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. The series Grand Theft Auto has been exceptional in delivering the best of video games to the audience, and all the game freaks have always appreciated it. The addition of new features in each version is greatly admired by the players. Also, the best part is that everyone is eagerly awaiting for the next game in the series, that is Grand Theft Auto 6. That's all for today's video. We hope you liked the video. Tell us about your favorite game of the series in the comments section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Evo Chronicles and hit that notification bell so you can always be notified by our regular uploads.